I paid my sister and her fiance's rent for years, only to learn they mocked me behind my back. I cut them off, and karma hit. Yes, you heard that correctly. Rent. It wasn't as if they provided me with a place to reside. It was the opposite. I was sending them $800 each month to assist pay their home and bills. It all began roughly 3 years ago. Emma and her fiance, Jared, were going through a difficult time financially. They were drowning in debt, and I could tell they were too proud to seek help. I had recently taken a job teaching high school. The salary wasn't terrific, but I wasn't married and didn't have any children, so I thought I could afford it. What's the point of having siblings? I offered to help them for a bit until they could get back on their feet. They were grateful, or so I thought. However, the interim arrangement dragged on. A month turned into 6. 6 months turned into 12. And then it hit me. 3 years of giving money every month, without fail. I restructured my entire life around it. No large purchases, no trips, simply living frugally to keep things going. Still, I did not complain. I knew I was doing the correct thing. Family comes first, always. Then followed the wedding announcement. They were finally getting married after all these years, and I thought, okay, this is a watershed moment. I secretly wished they'd tell me they didn't need my assistance anymore. Instead, Emma called me one day and asked if I could help with her wedding expenses. I'll never forget that call. I hesitated for a long time before telling her no. Emma, I already send you $800 a month. I can't do more than that, I told her. She became silent. I'm not sure what she wanted me to say, but I needed to draw the line someplace. Dad's birthday. The truth emerges fast forward 2 months to my father's birthday. We held a large family gathering at Grandma's place. It was the usual chaos. Tons of food, kids running around, and folks debating whose barbecue sauce was superior. Emma and Jared appeared carefree. We were all in excellent spirits, enjoying beverages and discussing old family stories. Everything appeared normal. Toward the conclusion of the event, my grandmother approached and caressed my arm. "Brian, can we talk outside for a minute?" she said gently. I didn't think much about it. Grandma is known for her little heart-to-heart conversations. It can be life advice or simply a word of encouragement. I believed she was going to encourage me to settle down. She was always wondering when I was going to find a good girl and start a family. We strolled onto the porch, which was quieter. She looked around to ensure no one was listening in. Then she said something that struck me like a punch to the belly. "They made fun of you," she replied quietly. "Who?" I inquired, wondering. "Emma and Jared. They laughed behind your back." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" She paused before speaking. "They think you're stuck in life, that you'll never have a family of your own, that you're wasting your time trying to help them. They joke about how much you sacrifice, while you live alone and struggle to be a teacher." I felt a tightness in my chest. I could not believe it. I had given so much for them, and this is how they perceived me? Some kind of loser who should be pitied and mocked at? I stood there in silence, taking in her words. Grandma stared at me with sad, knowing eyes. "Brian, you're a good man," she added softly. Grandma responded, "But you don't have to let them treat you like this. They're taking advantage of your kindness." I nodded, still stunned. What should I do with this information? Confront them in front of everybody? Ruin the evening? I was not going to let them have the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Instead, I went back inside, smiled, and pretended everything was fine. I even clinked glasses with Jared when we celebrated Dad's birthday. However, within, everything had altered. I realized I couldn't continue living like this. Did they think I was a joke? Fine. Let's see how hilarious things get if the money stops rolling in. I wasn't going to lose my cool. I'd play it smart and keep it elegant. But they were soon to discover that I was no pushover. The fallout begins. The morning following Dad's birthday party, I awoke early, still thinking about what Grandma had said. Part of me wanted to call Emma immediately afterward and confront her, but I opted not to. I needed time to contemplate. Instead, I went about my usual business, coffee, lesson preparations, and grading papers. Business as usual. About a week later, Emma called me. "Hey, Brian. Just checking in," she remarked cheerfully, as if nothing were wrong. "Hey," I said, maintaining a neutral tone. She began droning on about wedding plans, flowers, guest lists, and an issue with the caterer. I let her speak for a while. Then she casually mentioned money. "Oh, and Jared was wondering if you could send this month's rent a little early. We have a few things coming up." I had to fight myself not to chuckle. "Yeah. About that. I'm actually going through some financial stuff myself," I commented. "I won't be able to send the money this month." There was a pause. "Wait. You mean just this month, right? You'll still help us after that?" "I don't know, Emma. I've been helping for 3 years. I might need to focus on my own situation for a while." She remained silent for a moment. Then I noticed her voice thicken. "Brian, are you serious? We're counting on this money." "Yeah. Well, I was counting on my family not laughing behind my back." Another prolonged stillness. I didn't elaborate, and she never asked what I meant. Instead, she uttered a stiff okay and abruptly terminated the phone. That marked the beginning of the fallout. The family pressure 2 weeks have gone by. I didn't hear from Emma again, but I knew something was up. Then one night, my mom called me unexpectedly. "Brian, I just talked to Emma," she said, and I could see she wasn't happy. "She says you stopped helping her with her bills." "What's going on?" I exhaled. "Mom, I've been sending them $800 a month for 3 years. It's not like I owe them anything." "Well, yeah, but they're family." And Emma said, "You've been acting distant." "Did she also mention that they've been making fun of me behind my back?" I asked her. That silenced her for a second. "What are you talking about?" I told her what Grandma said. For a time, there was only astonished stillness on the other end. Finally, she spoke again, this time in a gentler voice. "Brian, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. You've done more for them than anyone could have expected. If they're treating you like this, I understand why you're upset." It was a relief to hear her say that. But I knew things were going to get ugly. The confrontation is sure enough. A few days later, Jared called me unexpectedly. "Hey, Brian," he said, his tone forced but courteous. "Emma's really upset. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "Is that right?" I asked, maintaining my composure. "Yeah, man. I don't know where you're getting these ideas, but we've never said anything bad about you. You've been great to us." "Oh, so Grandma just made that up?" I inquired honestly. Jared stammered for a second. "Look, if she said something, it was probably twisted. You know how old people can exaggerate." I didn't believe it for a second. "You know what, Jared? Let's not pretend. I'm done with the money. You guys are on your own. I hope the wedding goes well." I hung up before he could argue. Grandmother's revelation. The real kicker arrived a few days later when I received a call from Grandma herself. "Brian, honey, can you come over? I have something to show you," she said to him. Curious, I went to her residence. She walked me into her study and gave me an old family photo album. "I was going through some things and found these," she explained with a slight smile. I flipped through the pages and came across a collection of childhood images of me, Emma, and Jared. Then I noticed something unexpected. A letter slipped between the pages. It was from more than 20 years ago, before I was even born. "Grandma, what is this?" I questioned, pulling it out. "Read it," she replied softly. The letter came from my late grandfather, and it detailed a hidden trust fund he had established for his grandchildren, to be distributed equally, unless one is found to be abusing the family bond. "Emma and Jared don't know about this," Grandma continued quietly, "but I think you should." I sat there, startled. It wasn't simply about money anymore. This was about setting boundaries. And perhaps karma was about to catch up with them. The fallout escalates. Grandma showed me the letter, and I had a lot to think about. My late grandfather had established a trust fund for all of us, but she did not disclose how much money was in it. She made it obvious that no one else in the family knew. Not Emma, Jared, or my parents. "Why are you telling me this now?" I questioned her. Grandmother gave me a knowing glance. "Because I want you to understand something. You're not the failure they make you out to be." You've worked hard, sacrificed for others, and shown more integrity than most people ever would. This fund, it was meant to reward people like you. I nodded carefully, absorbing her words. I didn't want to rush into anything based on this new information, but it was comforting to know that I had some concealed leverage. Emma and Jared panic. The drama became more intense during the next week. Emma and Jared were panicking. I learned through the family grapevine. I believe limiting their monthly allowance affected them harder than I expected. Jared's work hours had been reduced, and Emma was having difficulty paying some of the wedding providers. I assumed they would figure it out. Instead, they began attempting to guilt other family members into giving them money. It backfired spectacularly. My mother stated to one of her sisters that I had been financially supporting Emma and Jared for several years. Word spread immediately. Everyone in the family found out pretty quickly. My Aunt Laura, who never holds back, supposedly ripped into Emma during a family function. I wasn't even attending. You let Brian pay your bills for 3 years, and now you're playing the victim? Are you serious? She allegedly said. Emma loses it. Emma called me later, enraged. What the hell, Brian? Did you tell everyone about the money? No, I said quietly. I only told one person, and you brought this on yourself. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? She asked. Emma, I think you have bigger problems than embarrassment. I told you. Maybe look in the mirror and ask yourself why you believed it was acceptable to treat me as a joke. She did not have a response. I assumed that was the end of it, but Jared decided to push things. He must have been desperate because he showed up unexpectedly at my school one afternoon. He waited for me in the parking lot. Brian, we need to talk, he replied, trying to seem calm but clearly agitated within. About what? I asked, crossing my arms. Look, man. Emma has been crying nonstop. People are turning against us. We just want to make things right, he explained. Oh, you want to make something right now? After 3 years of taking my money while laughing behind my back? I shake my head. No. Thank you, Jared. I am done being your safety net. His cheeks reddened. You act as if we intended to hurt you. It wasn't like this? So how was it, Jared? I interrupted. Explain to me how ridiculing someone who helps you isn't intended to hurt them. He did not have a positive response. Instead, he muttered something about how everything was a misunderstanding and walked out. Dad steps in. Later that night, I received a call from my father. He rarely participates in drama, so I knew this was serious. Brian, he explained, I had a lengthy conversation with Emma and Jared. They are struggling right now, but they regret how they treated you. That's good, I replied frankly, but I'm not interested in fixing things right now. They need to solve their own difficulties. Dad exhaled. Look, I am not saying you are incorrect. You've been more than generous. But maybe it's time to sit down and have a serious conversation with them. Clear the air. I thought for a moment. I'll think about it, I finally said. But deep down, I was not in a forgiving mood. They had been using me for several years. They'd have to prove they deserved another opportunity, and I wasn't going to make things easy for them. Our family meeting. About a week following my father's call, I received an invitation, handwritten. That was odd. It came from Emma. She asked me to meet her and Jared at a coffee shop near their house for a family meeting. I contemplated going, but curiosity got the better of me. I assumed I'd listen to them, despite my low expectations. When I arrived, the cafe was almost completely vacant. Emma and Jared were already there, looking a little overly prepared. Emma wore a phony smile, and Jared fidgeted with his phone. Emma remarked, "Hey, thanks for coming," as I sat down. "Sure." "What is this about?" I asked, keeping it brief. Emma took a big breath. "Look, we'd simply like to apologize. We shouldn't have talked about you that way. It was wrong, and we sincerely apologize." Jared nodded and joined in. We were agitated and told some horrible jokes. We didn't mean anything serious. I sat back and observed them. It all felt too polished and scripted. "Okay," I said, "but let me ask you a question. If Grandma hadn't told me, would you have ever apologized?" They froze for a second. Emma looked to Jared, who swiftly spoke out. "Of course, we would have. Eventually. I chuckled. Right. Sure. They shifted uncomfortably. That's when Emma revealed the true reason for the meeting. The favor. Brian, we need a favor, she explained cautiously. There it was. I almost laughed aloud. Let me guess. You need money. Not exactly. Emma responded nervously. We need you to co-sign a loan for us. I stared at her like she had a second head. Are you serious? We've struck a hard patch, Jared explained. And we just need some help refinancing the house. If you co-sign, we'll obtain a better rate, and we'll handle the rest. You would not have to pay anything. I couldn't believe what I heard. You've got to be kidding me, I responded. You think I'm going to put my name on a loan for you after all this? Are you listening to yourself right now? Emma's face reddened. We are not trying to take advantage of you. We're working to make things right. I shook my head in astonishment. You don't solve problems by begging for more handouts. You fix things by accepting responsibility for your own lives. Jared threw his hand down on the table. You are being unreasonable, Brian. We are family. I laughed bitterly. Exactly. And family members do not treat each other like dirt. You are on your own. I got up, tossed a couple bucks on the table for my coffee, and went out without saying anything. The bombshell. A few days later, the unexpected news broke. Grandma called me, sounding shaken. Brian, you should come over right away. It's important, she remarked. When I got to her house, she handed me an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter from the bank regarding the trust fund. Emma and Jared had apparently caught wind of it and were attempting to demand a larger share, claiming that I had withheld family assets. They went to a lawyer, Grandma said, her voice shaking with fury. They say you hid the trust fund from them, even though you didn't know about it until recently. I was stunned. You've got to be kidding me. They are desperate, Brian. They're grasping for straws, she remarked. But this is low, even for them. Then it struck me. They weren't only struggling. They were sinking. And now, they're willing to throw me under the bus to save themselves. I'm not going to let them get away with this, I stated forcefully. Grandma smiled a little sadly. Good. It's about time someone teaches them a lesson. An unexpected call. I wasn't done being surprised, though. The next morning, I received a call from a lawyer representing Emma and Jared. The first readied myself for a heated argument, but the lawyer sounded unexpectedly sorry. Mr. Daniels, he replied, I wanted to inform you that my clients have chosen to abandon their complaint. They'd like to handle the situation privately. Withdraw their claim? Why? There was an awkward moment. Let's just say some fresh information has surfaced about their financial predicament. I believe they knew they were in no position to pursue it legally. I couldn't help wondering what had happened. Later that day, I heard from Aunt Laura. Apparently, Jared was sacked when someone anonymously claimed that he had been embezzling minor quantities of company money. To make matters worse, the bank flatly refused their loan application, citing credit worries. Karma had struck them severely, and I had not even moved a finger. Emma's final attempt a few days after the trust claimed disaster. I was still processing everything when Emma texted me. We should talk, please. I ignored her. The next day, she showed up at my residence unexpectedly. She was pacing outside my building when I returned home from work. I sighed and stepped out of the car. What do you want, Emma? I asked, already fatigued. She appeared frustrated. Brian, I didn't realize Jared was going to go this far with the lawyer. I swear I did not want this to happen. Did he panic? I scoffed. You were both perfectly happy attempting to rip me off with that trust fund. She stared down at her feet and did not refute it. I'm sorry, okay? We've just been under so much stress. The wedding expenses, the house, everything is coming apart. I folded my arms. You know who's at fault, right? I shot back. Perhaps you wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't relied on me for so long. She winced, and then, unexpectedly, added, You're correct, but I have no one else to turn to. I looked at her in bewilderment. You don't understand, do you? I am done. I gave you years of my life and thousands of dollars, and you just laughed behind my back. Now you came here, expecting me to save you again? Brian, you're my brother, she whispered quietly. We're supposed to look out for each other. Yeah? Where was that support when you and Jared made fun of me? When did you attempt to take it from me? She did not have a response. I shook my head. Emma, I'm finished. This will be our last conversation regarding money, trust funds, or anything else. I don't want anything more to do with you or Jared. Her eyes widened. You can't simply cut me off like that. We are family. Watch me. With that, I walked inside, leaving her standing there. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but it was enough. Grandma takes a stand. The next day, Grandma called. She had heard everything, and nothing in our family keeps a secret for long. Brian, I want you to know something, she stated. I've decided I'm not going to talk to Emma or Jared anymore, at least not for a long time. I was startled. Grandma, you don't have to do that for me. I do, she stated firmly. You've been nothing but wonderful to them, yet they attempted to betray you. If they don't respect you, they won't respect me. They crossed the line, and I am not going to pretend differently. Hearing that from her meant more than I could express. Aunt Laura's news. A few weeks later, I received another surprise. I ran into Aunt Laura at the grocery store, and she took me aside. Hello, I heard about everything that happened. I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you, she said. Proud of me? I asked, perplexed. Yes, you have finally stood up for yourself. Emma had a knack of manipulating people, but you didn't let her take advantage of you. I laughed. It wasn't easy, but I couldn't live like that anymore. You did the right thing. By the way, you might want to check in with Grandma. She's making some modifications to the trust fund. That grabbed my attention. Changes? Laura laughed. Let's just say Emma and Jared might not be included in the future plans. Grandmother's final decision. When I saw Grandma a few days later, she verified it. I talked to the lawyer, she added, and I've determined that if Emma and Jared can't demonstrate responsibility and respect, they won't earn their share of the trust. I'm giving them the opportunity to change. But if they don't, the trust will be divided between you and your cousins instead. I was speechless for a moment. You don't need to do that, Grandma. I do not want any of the money. I know, she responded, smiling. That's why you deserve it. Cut ties for good. Following that, I cut off all communication with Emma and Jared. No texts, no calls. I banned their numbers and quit dealing with family drama. Things gradually became easier, and I had no idea how heavy my weight was until it was lifted. The actual kicker? Jared had moved out of the house after losing his job, and their relationship was on the rocks. So Emma had to return to live with her mother. I wasn't happy about it, but I couldn't ignore the irony. I turned down my ex's attempt to partner in my new restaurant after she sabotaged our first business and shattered my trust. I, 32M, and my ex-fiancée, Veronica, 31F, had a food truck together. We both dreamed of having our own restaurant when we first met 3 years ago while attending culinary school. While I had been working in kitchens since I was 16 to support myself, Veronica, who hailed from an affluent family, had never worked in the culinary sector prior to attending school. Despite our disparate upbringings, we clicked right away. When we first started the business, we were engaged for 2 years and dated for 6. Since I graduated, I had been saving money by working 60-hour weeks at different restaurants to accumulate cash and experience. By my 20th birthday, I had saved about $100,000. Veronica persuaded me to start with a food truck instead of continuing to save money until I could create a real restaurant. Before spending money on a complete restaurant, she suggested, it would be the ideal opportunity to test our concept and develop our brand. My entire concept and idea for the food truck came from me. By fusing contemporary cooking methods with my grandmother's traditional recipes, I want to serve fusion cuisine. Even though Veronica didn't contribute any money, I decided to make her a 50-50 partner because she looked pleased about it, and we were engaged and hoping to get married within the year. I oversaw operations and cooking, while she handled all financial matters because she had accounting knowledge from a prior position. The first year was fantastic. We discovered the ideal location next to a few office buildings, and our food was well liked by frequent patrons. We were found by local food bloggers, who gave us excellent evaluations. We even made the list of the top 10 food trucks in our city. I felt like I had finally realized my dream after our accomplishment, and it was even more satisfying to do it alongside Veronica. However, after 14 months, things began to become strange. I started to see inconsistencies in our inventories. Based on our sales, supplies would run out sooner than they ought to. Veronica indicated that we might be squandering more food than we thought, or that some staff might be stealing when I brought this up to her. Since she was in charge of the books, I trusted her judgment. After that, I saw that funds appeared to be vanishing from our account. Despite making a healthy profit, we never appeared to have enough money for necessities. Veronica would become defensive and accuse me of not trusting her if I attempted to look at the books. Do you think I'm stealing from us? Or don't you trust your future wife? Are some of the things she would say. I felt bad for even asking because of her. When one of our suppliers called to inform us that we were 3 months late on our payments, it was the tipping point. I knew we had enough revenue to support our costs, so this was illogical. I checked our business account online while Veronica was asleep. I felt ill to my stomach after discovering what I did. Veronica had been regularly moving money, often thousands of dollars at a time, from our corporate account to her personal account. The following morning, when I confronted her, she sobbed and acknowledged that she had been stealing money for months. She stated that she needed money to support Andrea, 25F, her younger sister, who was allegedly having a lot of credit card debt and didn't want their parents to find out. I tried to be understanding even though I was upset. Andrea, who occasionally assisted us with the food truck, was also like a sister to me. It was unbelievable to me that she was in such difficulties and hadn't approached us immediately. In order to discuss the matter and determine how we could assist Andrea in managing her debt, I gave her a call. However, Andrea was utterly perplexed. She said that she had no debt and that Veronica had not given her any money. Actually, she was doing very well financially and had recently received a promotion at work. Andrea was astonished when I informed her of Veronica's justification for the missing funds. Over the course of 8 months, it was discovered that Veronica had stolen about $50 from our company. The complex lies she had said and the way she had exploited her own sister as a cover story were more significant than the money. Her tale altered when I approached her once more. She said she wanted to surprise me and that she had been saving the money for our wedding and a down payment on a home. She had been taking out cash at ATMs, according to bank records, but the money was nowhere to be located. I promptly called off our engagement. Veronica sobbed uncontrollably, alternating between pleading for my part and claiming that I was exaggerating. Her parents became involved, which made matters worse. They maintained that since we were engaged and would shortly get married, it wasn't actually theft. Her father even implied that my tight control over the company funds amounted to financial abuse. In order to settle our supplier bills, I had to sell the food truck. I lost nearly everything I had accumulated because of the stolen money and the depreciated worth of a used food truck. I almost went bankrupt and was horrified. According to Veronica's parents, it was only a little financial dispute that I had exaggerated. Even some of our mutual acquaintances said I should try to make amends with her, since I was being too harsh. After working at several jobs for 2 years and saving every penny, I eventually launched my own tiny restaurant 6 months ago. It's nothing special, but I own it and have total authority over it. I maintain thorough records of everything and engaged qualified accountants. The restaurant is thriving. We're already making money and receiving positive feedback. Veronica arrived during dinner service last week. She claimed to want to put things right after learning about my achievement from friends we shared in common. She said she had changed and had some money to invest, so she proposed to be partners once more. She mentioned how effectively we collaborated before to the problems and suggested that we work together to further the restaurant's success. She has persisted even after I urged her to leave. After laughing incredulously, her parents began phoning me, accusing me of being spiteful and urging me to give Veronica another chance because she was essentially family. They mentioned how she had assisted me in launching my first company and claimed that I owed her for that. I blocked their phone numbers. On social media, Veronica's pals are now disparaging me and accusing me of being callous for failing to assist my ex-family in getting back on their feet. Since everyone deserves a second opportunity, several mutual friends claim that I'm being too harsh and that I should at least listen to her. Update. 3 weeks have passed since my last post. Thank you to everyone who left a comment and offered encouragement. I need to get this off my chest since, regrettably, things have become much worse. Veronica and her parents started visiting my restaurant during our busiest times after I blocked them. Initially, Veronica was the only one ordering water, while seated alone at a corner table. She would remain for hours, looking at me every time I went by. Some clients observed the tension, and my employees began to feel uneasy. Her parents then joined in. They would only order the cheapest items on the menu and occupy a large table that could seat 6 people during our Friday and Saturday dinner rush. They would try to wave me down every time I passed, screaming things like, "This is no way to treat your future in-laws," or "We're family. You can't ignore us forever," loud enough for the customers around to hear. At first, I made an effort to manage things professionally. My host seated them in less conspicuous locations and told the employees to handle them just like any other patron. However, they went too far last week. During dinner service, Veronica's father got up and began yelling at other patrons about how I had taken their daughter's business ideas and left her when she needed assistance. There was a commotion when I had to ask them to leave. Only after I threatened to call the police did they go. The following day, I began to see odd internet evaluations. To submit unfavorable evaluations about my restaurant, someone had set up several accounts. They said we served bad food, had rats in the kitchen, and had major health code breaches. The fact that certain reviews brought up particular instances from our food truck days that only she would be aware of, such as the time we had to close early due to a generator failure, and that she twisted into a tale about food contamination, was what gave Veronica away. My business began to suffer from the phony reviews. Our lunch attendance significantly shrank, and I experienced multiple cancellations of reservations. Veronica was served with a cease and desist letter by the lawyer I hired, who specialized in defamation matters. In response, she posted on many sites and made more fictitious accounts. At that moment, an unforeseen event occurred. Veronica's sister, Andrea, visited my restaurant after it had closed. She claimed she was unable to remain silent any longer and was clearly agitated. She disclosed that Veronica never provided assistance to anyone using the pilfered funds. She had been concealing her gambling addiction for years. Andrea claims that before we even met, Veronica had been going to underground casinos. Although she was able to conceal it effectively, her losses had been increasing. She immediately used the $50,000 she took from our food truck business to settle debts related to gambling. 2 years prior, when Andrea found Veronica unconscious in her apartment, with threatening messages from loan sharks on her phone, she had learned of this. Andrea proved everything to me, with pictures, text messages, and bank statements. Veronica has been controlling everyone in her vicinity. She had even convinced their parents that she needed the money for our wedding preparations. So, she had stolen it. She had previously gambled away her savings, which is why she hadn't contributed any funds to our food truck. It was troubling why Andrea hadn't stepped out sooner. She had been blackmailed by Veronica. Although their conservative parents were unaware of it, Andrea was seeing a lady. If Andrea ever told their parents the truth about the gambling, Veronica had vowed to expose her. When Andrea realized that Veronica's behavior was ruining my new company, she eventually made the decision to notify me since she could no longer bear the guilt. I informed our common acquaintances, who had been disparaging me on social media, of this knowledge. Many expressed shock and apologies for making assumptions about me before hearing the whole tale. Many recalled giving Veronica loans that she never paid back, constantly citing various justifications such as unexpected costs. Veronica's parents, meanwhile, continued to live in denial. They accused Andrea of lying to conceal her own lifestyle choices when she attempted to provide proof of Veronica's gaming. They are now accusing me of being cruel for disseminating false information about Veronica's alleged addiction and of manipulating Andrea into turning against her sister. When some of Veronica's contacts from the casino began to visit my restaurant, the situation became even more difficult. They weren't subtle individuals, and other patrons felt uneasy around them. One of them cornered me in the parking lot after closing last week and said I ought to be more giving to my ex-fiancée. To keep an eye on the property during business hours, I had to hire a security guard. Because of all this commotion, my business is getting hurt. I've had to pay for security and legal fees, and our weekday dinner service has decreased by 30%. However, I'm not going to back down. We are getting ready to file a lawsuit against Veronica and anyone else attempting to harm my company. And my lawyer is compiling proof of harassment and defamation. I know that giving Veronica money will just make her conduct worse, yet some people have urged that I do so to make this stop. Instead of supporting her and making excuses for her behavior, she needs professional therapy for her gambling addiction. Part of the reason I'm giving this update is to alert others to the ways addiction may lead to manipulation and harm to those closest to the addict. I'm concentrating on safeguarding my company and my staff for the time being. I've started recording every event and added more security cameras. I've also warned other local business owners about the possibility of harassment. My true friends have come to light as a result of this circumstance, and I'm appreciative to those who have supported me during this chaos. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update, and what I have in store for you feels like something from a horrible movie. A man named Michael, 35M, entered my restaurant during prep time and asked to speak with me alone, just when I believed I had exposed all of Veronica's lies. He identified himself as the current legal husband of Veronica, not her ex-husband. I initially believed that this was just another effort at harassment, but Michael had data to support my claims. He gave me their 7-year-old marriage certificate, pictures from their wedding, and court documents detailing his efforts to find Veronica 5 years ago after she vanished with their money. Since Veronica had never formally divorced him, our engagement was a sham. Michael told his story over lunch. He married young after being in love with Veronica in high school. They opened a tiny bakery in a different state with their wedding funds and a loan from his parents. Does that sound familiar? Veronica maxed out their credit cards, cleared out their accounts, and disappeared after 2 years of what appeared to be a prosperous business. She only left a note expressing her sense of being stuck in the marriage. In addition to the divorce, Michael spent years trying to find her because she had ruined his family. In order to repay the company loans they co-signed, his parents had to sell their home. The time was ideal. 3 months before she met me at culinary school, Veronica vanished from Michael's life. When I brought up the topic of actually choosing a wedding date, she always had an excuse since she had changed her last name, but had never formally divorced him. Michael's story made me feel physically ill. Veronica wasn't being sentimental or pragmatic when she recommended that we elope or expressed a desire for a small, private wedding ceremony. Legally, she was unable to wed me. She had previously stolen money from our food truck business, but this was her most recent theft. Surprisingly, Veronica revealed everything when I texted her to confront her about Michael. But she twisted the story, as Veronica always does. She said Michael had been abusive and domineering. Michael, however, showed me police records he had submitted, which demonstrated that she was the one who was abusing him, and that she had to steal the money in order to get away. Veronica said that she had intended to divorce Michael in the end, and that she had kept her marriage a secret from me out of protection. After hours of note comparing, Michael and I discovered that Veronica had been operating the same fraud in several places. She would connect with someone who wanted to launch a food-related business, get access to their money, and then drain their accounts. As far as we know, she had done this at least 4 times. Together with Michael's attorney, my attorney is currently constructing a fraud case against Veronica. At last, Michael is able to serve her with divorce documents. The fact that this seems to be a pattern of intentional illegal activity across several states is another reason why the authorities are interested. When further victims began contacting us, it was the biggest shock. Michael published my original Reddit post in forums for company owners after discovering it. 3 other individuals came forward with comparable accounts of Veronica. Even while she was still living with Michael, she was engaged to one. Every story had the same pattern. She would become part of their life, win their trust by falling in love, and then take whatever she could. When Veronica's parents found out about her prior marriage, they eventually stopped supporting her. When her mother arrived at my restaurant in tears, she said she didn't know who her daughter was. However, they have just vanished without offering me an apology for their harassment and accusations. Andrea claims that in order to settle some of Veronica's gambling debts, they have deactivated their social media accounts, ceased frequenting the restaurant, and mortgaged their home. Since we called the police, the casino staff has also retreated. It turns out that some of them didn't want the spotlight and were operating an illegal gambling enterprise. Veronica owes them more than $200,000, Wei found out. She had been trying to recover her losses by spending the money she had stolen from me and other people, but she had only ended up losing more. At last, things are returning to normal at my restaurant. Regular consumers are coming back, now that the phony reviews have been taken down. This strange experience has made me buddies with Michael. He even promised to assist me in growing my company after the legal matters are resolved. He stated that he hopes this entire fiasco would lead to something positive. I'm still amazed at how meticulously Veronica organized everything. She made up whole false personas and life tales, in addition to lying about minor details. Since they discovered anomalies in her application materials, the culinary school where we met is currently looking into the matter. Her entire existence seems to have been based on falsehoods. Update 3. This will most likely be my final update, as it has been 6 months since my last post. Last month, Veronica was taken into custody in Las Vegas. She apparently ran away there after all the information was made public, and attempted to con a casino owner with the same ruse. She was obviously unaware that casino owners spoke with one another, and one of them knew who she was from the warnings that had been going around. Under a different fictitious name, the cops discovered her residing at an inexpensive motel. She had 5 different IDs and credit cards in different names when she was arrested. Notebooks describing her prior scams, including the ones she perpetrated on me, were also discovered. She had everything in writing, including when to start collecting money, how to build trust, and how long to wait before proposing a business opportunity. Everything was organized like a business plan. She faces many fraud charges from the district attorney in multiple states. In addition to Michael and me, they discovered at least 7 more victims. While she was still legally married to Michael, she was also engaged to 2 of them. She has taken about $800,000 in total throughout the years. She could face severe jail time. Andrea now frequents my restaurant on a regular basis. She moved in with her girlfriend in a nearby apartment after coming out to her parents and being shunned. Ironically, she now assists me with the books, carrying out the task her sister was meant to perform. In addition to being far more skilled at it, she is also honest. We occasionally discuss Veronica and attempt to determine whether there were any indicators that we overlooked, but our main goal is to move on. Last week, Veronica's parents finally spoke out. They actually sent me a handwritten letter, not a text or email. Although it wasn't quite an apology, I thought it may be. They wrote about how their love for their kid blinded them, and how they failed to raise her properly. In order to pay off the obligations Veronica had accrued in their names, they acknowledged having to sell their home and relocate to a smaller space. Not for their benefit, but so they might have a relationship with their future grandkids, if I ever had any. They asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive them. I didn't answer. There are some issues that cannot be resolved verbally, and I have no desire to keep up any relationship with them. They only expressed regret once they became victims themselves, supported Veronica's actions for years, and attacked my character after I revealed her thievery. In fact, all of this has made Michael and I close friends. He recently launched a new bakery in the community, and we are discussing the possibility of working together on future initiatives. We both concurred that we must not allow Veronica's actions to deter us from putting our faith in others and going for our goals. Now more than ever, my restaurant is doing well. In fact, more customers came in as a result of the attention surrounding Veronica's arrest. In an attempt to torment me, some even want to sit at the famous table where she used to wait for hours. I now make fun of it with my employees, but we've also put strong security measures in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Although the legal proceedings are still going on, I'm not giving them any more attention. I have provided the prosecutors with the required statements and supporting paperwork. I'm done allowing Veronica to occupy space in my life, but her actions will be held against her in court. I occasionally reflect on how things might have gone differently if I had allowed myself to be manipulated by her and given her another chance. Like she did with the food truck, she most likely would have emptied my new restaurant as well. Rather, I followed my gut and refused to back down. I've discovered that getting even or disproving others isn't always the best form of retaliation. It's about turning a bad experience into something good. I've made real friends. My restaurant is doing well, and I'm at last at peace with all that has transpired. For anyone experiencing a similar situation, follow your instincts, document everything, and avoid being coerced into disregarding warning signs. Certain individuals reveal their true selves to you. Trust them the first time. My husband knocked out my brother for calling me, and now my parents want me to choose. What is the right choice? Original post. Sorry for the throwaway account. I have colleagues on my main account, and I want to keep this as private as possible, but also need advice. As my title says basically, this past weekend me and my husband were over at my parents' house for a BBQ. The day was going great, until my brother, for some reason, started to have a go at me, calling me names and belittling me. My husband pulled my brother aside and had a talk with him, and the insult stopped. An hour or so later, we were standing around talking with some friends and family members, and my brother came up to me and told me I'm a whore. His exact words were, "You know you are a fucking whore, right?" He said it loud enough for almost everyone at the party to hear. All I saw was my husband next to me look at me. Then I felt a push to the side. My husband stepping in front of me, and the next thing was my brother out cold on the ground, with blood on his face. All I heard is my mother yelling, and my husband saying, "You don't talk to my wife like that, I warned you already." Before I continue, my husband didn't hurt me. He didn't push me hard or anything like that. Don't know how to describe it, but it was like a push that someone will give you when they are trying to pass. I went like one step back, that is all. I am not mad at my husband. I'm mad at my brother. The whole day, he was demeaning me, insulting me, belittling me. I don't know where this came from, as he has never talked to me like that. or to anyone that I know of. The bigger problem is that I have to choose either my husband or my parents. My parents are pissed and have given me an ultimatum. I either leave my husband and divorce him, or they cut me off completely. My husband doesn't give a crap that they are mad. The only thing he is mad about is that he only got one punch in his words. I love my husband and don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to lose my parents. They have supported me through a lot and have always been there for me. I know they are serious, as this is the first time they have ever issued me with an ultimatum. They also threatened my husband with an assault charge, but he didn't care and welcomed them to do it. I'm stuck between a decision that will change my life forever, and I'm panicking. I have received messages for friends and other family members that have given me support and condemned my husband, but they are leaning more on the support side. Any advice will be appreciated. Edit to clarify. I am choosing my husband. I have never questioned that, but I also don't want to lose my family. I am very family-oriented, and family to me is everything. I want to find a solution where I can keep both. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Info. Why do your parents think it's okay that your brother called you names? What is their excuse? O.P. They haven't excused his actions, but they are condemning my husband for resorting to violence. Commenter 2. What kind of family does this stuff? It sounds very dysfunctional. What were the circumstances whereby your brother goes off on you like that? Now your parents issue an ultimatum? I appreciate that your husband stuck up for you, but that was a terrible political move. One thing about my husband, he is sweet and gentle, but he has never cared what someone else thinks about him other than me and his own mother. OOPs. Thoughts on violence and how her husband had done this to her brother, UOOP. My husband doesn't resort to violence. I have never seen him really angry, and what I saw in his face was just anger. I don't know how to describe it. This is the first time I have seen him react violently to anything. My husband doesn't care at all. The only peoples whose opinions matter to him is mine and his mother. My brother as well has never talked to me like that at all. This is the first time. OOP's husband needs to earn her parents' forgiveness for what he has done to their son/her brother. OOP. My husband honestly doesn't care. When I asked if he would apologize for reacting with violence just to keep the peace, he told me my brother and parents can go fuck themselves. My husband has tried to cheer me up, but he hasn't pushed anything on me. He hasn't given me an ultimatum to choose him or anything. He apologized for putting me in the position with my parents, but he isn't sorry for knocking out my brother. In my husband's words, I asked him nicely to stop, and I did tell him he will face the consequences if he continued, and he didn't listen. He doesn't care what people think of him. The only opinions that matter to him are mine and his own mother. OOP on. If she had dated someone before her husband, any chances that her brother called her names for another reason like cheating OP? No. My husband was my first, and I have never done anything else with anyone, except my husband. Update. First, I would like to thank everyone, and I want to apologize as well for the way I worded my post. It's no excuse, but my emotional state isn't the best. Unable to link my previous post. Just look at the account. My husband is my choice, and I have no intentions of leaving him at all. Never have. I know it's early for an update, but I'm more confused now about what is going on. My parents invited me over to have a talk with them, but they wanted me to come alone as they didn't want my husband at their house. My husband refused to let me go alone, and said if he isn't going, then he won't allow me to. He basically said with you alone there, they will just pile on you, and that I won't let happen. So we went together. My parents weren't happy to see him, and my mother wanted to say something, until my husband told her he isn't there for them but me, and if he is forced to leave, I will leave with him. I agreed with him. Reluctantly, they agreed. My brother was there as well. He has a broken nose and chipped teeth, and refused to look at me or my husband. He just kept looking at the ground even while talking. Apparently, what happened with my brother is that he broke up with his girlfriend a month ago. It's more like she broke up with him. Don't know the reason. Don't care. I wasn't aware of this as we aren't close like that. According to him, The reason he had a go at me this weekend is because of my life. According to him, my perfect life with my husband kept popping up on his feeds, and he got jealous. Everything on my social media is with my husband. I don't really use it for anything else, but his feed was full of my posts, and that set him off as I had something that he didn't. It got worse when he overheard me and my mother talking, when I had a discussion with her over children. Me and my husband are currently trying to have a baby, and that just made everything worse in his head. His life was falling apart, and mine was going perfectly, and I had and was trying to have what he wanted with his ex. He said he didn't take my husband seriously when he pulled him aside, and my husband warned him. I seriously don't know why he went after me, as nothing he said was true in any sense, and I did ask him why he said those things. He refused to answer me. I asked him why the whore comment, because he knows my husband was my first in everything, and it has only been him all these years. He refused to answer. I asked him if trying to have a baby with my husband makes me a whore, as it involves sex, and he just left the room. I asked my parents why they didn't step in and tell my brother to leave or stop. My dad said he wanted to, but my mother told him to leave my brother, as he is not actually hurting anyone. The same with the ultimatum. They wanted to protect my brother. I asked, what about me? And they were silent. All my father said was the ultimatum was my mother's idea, and he went along with it. This is basically where we are at the moment. A lot more was said, but I don't think it matters. My husband did apologize to my parents for what happened, but refused to apologize to my brother. When my mother asked him to apologize to my brother, he outright said no. He won't apologize for standing up for me, and my brother got what he deserved. He was warned and didn't listen. My mother said it still doesn't excuse him for hitting my brother. My husband asked my dad what he would do if someone called his wife a whore. My father said, I will have a talk with that person, but will never hit someone. My husband laughed and told my dad he is a weak-willed, spineless man if he allows someone to demean his wife like that. That got my mom red in the face. I could see her get angry. That is when I told my husband, it's time to leave. I told my parents that I will be going low contact with them, and the ultimatum they gave me broke the trust I had in them. I understand they wanted to protect my brother, but in doing that they hurt me. This seemed to take all the anger out of my mother. They asked if I will be cutting them out completely, and I told them that is up to them. I don't want anything to do with my brother at the moment, as he can't even apologize for what he said to me. I told them if they can respect my wishes we will see. When we got up to leave, my husband went over to my parents and actually still greeted them politely, but told my dad it's time to grow a backbone. I don't know what I saw, but I think it was a shame on my mother's face, because my dad looked at my mother, and she looked away from him. This is where we are at the moment. My husband on the way back home apologized for possibly escalating things, but told me it was time someone told my dad the truth. He said whatever punishment comes he will take and deal with any fallout. I don't need to worry or stress about anything. Edit, my brother's ex cheated on him, and apparently he begged her to fix things, but she chose the other guy. And now he is just pissed and angry at every woman and believes we will all do that eventually. Got a message from my cousin. The family had a go at my parents for allowing my brother to talk to me the way he did, and they came clean as to why he did what he did, but couldn't do it when I was over, and we talked. They couldn't be honest with me and just refused to answer. Additional information from OOPO. Honestly, really thinking about it, the only person I have felt genuine unconditional love and support from is my husband. There are a lot of things I just swept under the rug and thought it was siblings things. But looking back, whenever my brother had a difficult time, it was taken out on me in some way, and my parents have never stuck up for me. My husband has had my back around every corner and has never thrown things in my face like my parents or brother have. OP. On her parents' relationship and why they are not hearing her out. OP. My father just follows what my mother said. In my 26 years of life, I have never seen my dad go against my mother with anything. Anything she says or wants to do it. Fine with him no matter the cost. For instance, My dad basically has no friends as my mother didn't like them, so he gave them up and hasn't made new friends. Because when he tried, my mother finds something she doesn't like about that person, and he agrees. OOP should had gone alone to talk with her parents and brother about her husband's behavior. OOP. So I should take the way he worded it over the fact that he wanted to be there and make sure I'm not getting gaslighted. I took it as he want to ensure I'm safe and what happens doesn't happen again. My wording is bad, as my emotional state isn't the best that is on me, and I should have probably double-checked everything before posting, but his emotional state can't be any better than mine. He is dealing with everything, and on top of that, he is trying his best to keep my mood up. I know it sounded bad, but I took what he said with all the other actions he took so far to keep me safe. My husband and I took in my best friend and her 3 kids after a tragedy, but now I'm regretting it. Original post. My 30 best friend, 29F, just recently lost her husband, home, car, and all income. Her husband suddenly passed and was the only one working while she stayed at home with her 1 twins and 4 They had nowhere to go, so we took them in until she could save up enough to get an apartment. There was no life insurance. My husband isn't happy that they are here. He has told me that he does not like my friend at all, that she has taken me away from him and has taken his home away. He is paranoid that she is stealing our things when we aren't home and wants to put locks on our bedroom and office doors, as well as put cameras in them. Today, my friend went into our room to smoke a cigarette on our patio to take a second away from her kids when we weren't home. She called me to tell me that she was going onto our patio, and my husband started freaking out. Now he says he feels like he needs to get an apartment, that he doesn't feel safe. He doesn't have a place in our home that they don't have access to. It breaks my heart that he hates my friend so much when she hasn't done anything. She's just going through one of the toughest times in her life. But I don't know if I am being too trusting of my friend and inconsiderate of his feelings, or if he is being too paranoid. Some of OP's comments. Commenter, I think there needs to be discussion of a timeline for when she is leaving. He agreed to take her in the short term. At least that is the impression I got reading this. So he needs to chill a bit about them living in his space. That being said, suddenly having another woman he doesn't like and 3 kids in the house is understandably not awesome. I think the solution is to set a timeline for when she is leaving. Help her find a place as her friend, but stick to the timeline. OOP. Downvoted. The agreement was a medium-term stay. 8 months to get her kids into daycare, get a job, save up for a car and home. I do think it was a mistake to not have a solid move-out date set for her. Definitely time to set that. She's only been here for a month now. OOP answers some questions. I agree that she should not have gone into our bedroom while we weren't home, and I need to re-establish these boundaries with her immediately. I have no problem with him putting the cameras and locks up if this makes him feel better. Even though I will be talking with her, I don't have the option to be too afraid to talk to her. My husband is my priority over her feelings. Daycare/job. She is waiting to get approved for government daycare assistance, but yes, she is actively looking for work and daycare. She's only been with us for 1 month. The office door is always locked, and she has not gone in there at all, and she has not gone into our bedroom besides that one time. I guess that I'm aware of. Commenter. If you are in the United States, the children would be eligible for Social Security benefits. You should encourage your friend to apply for those if she hasn't already. Your friend and her children may also qualify for Medicaid health benefits too. OP. She has been applying for everything possible. I will make sure she also has applied for these. Thank you. Commenter. This OP. How long are they already in your home? Who is paying for food, diapers, and the very important cigarettes? Are you so sure your husband is not right, and she is snooping everywhere where she should not snoop? When you live with friends, you get to know them. Why do you not let your husband put up cameras? Are you afraid he is right? And do you not want to stand up against your friend for your husband? And if your husband is wrong, he will be reassured. Look, it is a lousy situation for your friend to be in. But this is the choices her husband and she made. She has to get her shit together ASAP for her kids' sake. There's leaning on someone and taking advantage of someone. OP. She has been here for 1 month now. She is getting government assistance for food and diapers. We have a stash of cigarettes we've been giving her because we don't smoke, and a common gift from my husband's family when they visit from overseas are cigarettes. I have known this woman for 15 years, and I wouldn't for a second think she would steal from us. There is no way for me to know 100% unless we put cameras up, which we will be doing. We already have cameras in the front yard, backyard, and living room. It's not that I'm not letting him. I did think it was just a bit excessive. We can put locks and cameras up. I disagree on this situation being her fault, but I 100% agree she needs to get her life together for her and the kids. But it takes more than 1 month to do that, commenter. Not to mention that her, OP's, husband is Chinese, which means other cultures, other ways of dealing with things. They are known to be very reserved compared to Occidental people. And from OP's post history, it seems that their home is a constant shelter for any friend of hers. I'd be freaking out too if I'd gotten married and ended up running a shelter for people, not being able to be with my family, and my family only, for some time. And we're not even talking about all the other issues here. Who's paying the bills? Who's buying food for all of them? How even your very own bedroom is all of a sudden occupied by someone else. OP has to make a choice. Does she really want to be married? It seems to be the female version of the my husband got married, but is still behaving like he's single story. Yes. He is Chinese. Our home has not been a constant shelter, although I do need to be better at saying no to my friends in need. She is the second person to stay with us. The first friend was a disaster, and I won't make that mistake again. He was 100% on board with helping my current friend out. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her children. We did not want them to be homeless. There are a lot of details about their story that are just so fast. She has no bills, and she gets government assistance for food and diapers. Our room and the office are off limits, and I will be re-establishing these rules and boundaries today. She cannot and will not be allowed to do what she did again. I disagree that I am acting single. We both agreed to help a family in need. But it's hard, and I'm realizing I need to be more firm with her. But I cannot read the mind of someone who tells me there is no problem until 1 month in. Commenter, it's his home too. Was he even part of the decision? She needs to find her own place. She can't stay with you forever. Oop. We discussed the decision for a few weeks before letting her move in. We were both 100% on the same page at first, until now. It's obvious that she cannot stay forever. She has only been here for 1 month. To another commenter, he was at first. We were both kind of excited to have the kids here since we have been trying for children for over a year. We discussed her moving in extensively before allowing her to, and he was 100% on board. To a third commenter asking if he had a say, he did. He's the one that originally brought it up. Commenter, why is she not staying with family? Whoa. B. She has no reliable family. Honestly, it breaks my heart that absolutely no her husband's family has helped or even reached out on their own. I've known her for 15 years, and it's always been that way. She was staying with her grandparents in another state for a few months, but they are elderly with a lot of health problems, and it became too much for them to handle in a 2-bedroom condo. To another commenter, her family is horrible. Her mother was in prison when she graduated high school, and her father kicked her out at 17 for not dropping out of school to care for his new child. It's very sad. His family. There was no contact with his family even before he passed, unfortunately. She's taking advantage of you. She is not taking us for granted at all. She keeps the house clean, cleans up after herself and her children, has assistance for groceries and diapers, waiting to get approved for other assistance. This is the only problem we've had with her in the months she's been here. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her 3 children. If it was just her, we would have said no. My husband and I were on the same page with letting her stay. We agreed to 8 months, but I do agree that we need to set a specific move-out date. Commenter, Did you agree with your husband for her to stay for 8 months? Why save to get a car? She needs a deposit for a house rental. She doesn't have a job. Who will help with child care? I think you entered this in good faith, but it's such a burden to take on. Oopie, yes. My husband set the 8 months timeline. She will need a car to get herself to and from work, as well as her children to and from daycare. Public transport where we are is non-existent. She's rebuilding from zero. It's gonna be hard. Commenter, 51% of Americans have life insurance, so it's actually more than half. It's very kind of you to help, but again, them not being prepared for life to happen is not your responsibility. You must pick your poison. Oopie, agreed. But my husband and I cannot in good conscience let 3 babies be homeless because of their parents' bad decisions. Update post. This update is a few weeks overdue, but a lot has happened. It's so hard to fit every single detail of a situation in one post, especially while trying to respect my friend's privacy while going through such a rough time. But I took a lot of y'all's advice. I apologized to my husband and asked him what boundaries he has and what needs to change for him to feel more comfortable. We did have this conversation before they moved in, but things are so different than expected. I realized that I was putting my friend before my husband, and it was a harsh wake-up call. My husband wasn't thinking about leaving me, but he was definitely unhappy. I am glad we had this talk, because we have been a lot happier being on the same page. Well, we sat down and talked to my friend, and it went great. She apologized for going into our bedroom when we weren't home and agreed that it was unacceptable and will not happen again. I told her the bedroom and study were off limits. No exceptions. Her children need to keep their toys in the playroom we made for them and not downstairs, so they aren't taking over the entire house. She agreed to these things completely. We changed the door locks on the 2 rooms as well as added cameras and a safe for valuables. Most importantly, we told her she needed to get a job and her children in daycare ASAP and gave her a hard deadline of April 1. She took the whole conversation really well and said she needed this to happen so she could get out of her sadness and start building her life for her and her kids. 5 days later, she got a job and found a daycare for her children. It's been a complete switch in the energy in the house. My husband and I are spending more time alone in our home together, and all of our set boundaries have been respected. To everyone that said they'd never take in their friend and 3 kids, that is exactly why she has nowhere else to go. No one said yes. It's been rough on everyone, but my husband and I are confident in our decision to help. Even more so now that we both feel listened to. He has also worked on his anger towards said friend and feels more at ease while talking to her and existing in the same space. It also helps that he sees she is taking our rules and deadlines seriously and acting accordingly. Reddit obliterated me, and while I don't agree with kicking her out, I appreciate the brutal mess that made me realize I was not backing my husband the way I vowed to. Some of OP's comments. Commenter. Children in daycare. You are delusional. She cannot afford that. Oh, OP. No, she can't. She has assistants and found an in-home daycare that is working with her. She still has to pay some, but it's a lot more manageable. Her smoking isn't my concern. If I put my energy into micromanaging everything she does, I'd go insane. She got her children in a daycare and got a job. I'd say she is getting her shit together. Commenter, yikes April, she should be out of their way before then. Oop, 6 months to start from scratch is almost not enough time. We are happy with the move-out date. Commenter, I don't know if I said it in the other post or not, but keep in mind that if you let someone stay in your home, you will have a hell of a time getting rid of them if your friend suddenly decides she doesn't want to leave. Oh, Hopi. I'm not sure how much these will actually help, but we did create a written contract with the rules and move out the date that we all signed. Maybe it won't really hold up in court, but it's something. Commenter, so glad things worked out. Friends needed some boundaries too. Oh, yes. I was so stressed about having too many rules. I didn't even think about the fact that it'd be so helpful for her as well. Commenter, that's good y'all had the talk. I definitely couldn't take in someone and their 3 kids. But one thing for sure, and she should have definitely known this, is you never go through the owner's bedroom. That is like a sacred area. My parents never told me that as a kid, but I've always thought that. It's the one area in the house you do not enter without permission. No idea what she was thinking going in there. Oh, p. Her kids just lost their dad and don't fully understand it. They have meltdowns sometimes, and at the worst, they all have a meltdown at the same time. She was desperate for a safe space for herself, which I can understand. But she can't compromise our safe space in the meantime. Go out back or front and lock the bathroom door, etc. Motherhood seems intense. Commenter, you did well considering taking in a single mom with 3 kids. We need more PPL, like you and your husband, PPL, who don't get scared to sacrifice their comfort over someone else's living. I am percent sure all the good deeds you do to those kids and mom will come back in 100x more. You never know what life is planned for you. Once my parents took in a woman with 6 kids, 2 own children, and 4 adopted, where husband tragically lost his life. Since then, I have 6 more siblings. I am grateful to Allah for them. It was not an easy decision to make, and even more not easy living in it. But my heart broke as I witnessed them jump from house to house and have no idea what was happening or when they would see their dad again. My husband and I are fighting a fertility battle, so in a way I took all of my sadness of not being the same to conceive and poured it into the 3 little ones. The experience we've gotten to prepare us for parenthood has been irreplaceable, and the love I have for them is deeper than I could have ever expected. I truly hope that my husband and I made a difference in their lives, giving them a place to be stable and safe. Our discomfort has a checkout date. Theirs doesn't. Thank you for sharing your story with me.